There's one true crime case I would say really captured the imagination when it came out, and there have been so many videos made on it. You're probably wondering why it's taken me this long to make a video about it. And that is, of course, the Watts family murders. You will have definitely seen the videos of Chris Watts if you are even vaguely interested in true crime. And if you haven't seen them, I suggest you stop this video now and you go and look up Jim Can't Swim and you watch his videos about Chris Watts' confession. Also the footage of the body cam worn by the police officer that went to investigate the house. It's all compelling stuff because we're literally seeing a Columbo-esque mystery unfold before our eyes. We can see his facial expressions, the looks, the psychology and body language of the man is just screaming, "I killed everyone." Now, because he's been done to death and hopefully is done to death in prison, I thought I would take a look at one aspect that I feel has been sort of chronically underlooked at. And that's his affair with Nichol. Nichol Kessinger was a young single woman working at his workplace. Now, she worked in the office and he worked out in the field, and their relationship started pretty casually. Or that's what we're led to believe by Nichole's testimony when she met up with cops on the Wednesday, the 16th of August. Now, this interview is 2 hours long, and oh my God, it's like nails on a chalkboard trying to listen to her horrible affected Valley Girl accent. So I've done it for you. I've done the pain. My ears have bled for you. Nichole's testimony on this particular day is very interesting for a lot of reasons. And I've not seen a sort of psychological body language, speech analysis occur on her particular interview. I'm sure they exist out there, and if they are, I'm always open to listening to other people's opinions on this. But I thought I'd do my own. So let's do this. Let's summarize the 2-hour interview. Now, when it comes to any analysis of somebody psychologically or to do with speech, you know, trying to work out whether or not they're lying, things like that, there's always a few good rules of lie detection. So one of the good rules of lie detection is, what is their tone like when we know for a fact that they are not lying? Now, Nichole's time comes up right in the beginning of the interview when she's obviously giving the factual information about herself, which is her name, her date of birth, things like that. So we get a sense of her tone at the very beginning, and it is very flat. She has a flat, bored tone, as if, honestly, she could be plucking her pubic hairs instead of doing this. Now, I do apologise in advance because I might jump a bit in this. It was 2 hours and my God, I needed more wine. But there might be some jumping about. I'll try to keep it as concise down to a timeline as possible. The timeline starts in early June or late May. One of those two dates is correct according to Nichole. She says when she first started sort of casually talking to Chris that he never wore his wedding ring, he never mentioned he had children, and he never mentioned that he was married. That's usually the hallmark of a man that's going to have an affair. Now, according to Nichole, she found out that he did have a wife around Father's Day. Now, Father's Day in the UK is the 15th of June, and I think it's the same in the US. When she said that he mentioned that he had 2 kids, her response was, oh, that's kind of cool, that's kind of cool. And, you know, quite rightly, the investigator picks up on this and says, well, that sounds kind of sarcastic. And this is when the first annoying, high-pitched, childish voice comes through. So we're going to call this one Giggly Nichole.
What is kid?
That sounded like a sarcastic comment.
No, I thought it was kind of cute. I was like, oh, he's a dad. It was like right around Father's Day too.
You will notice that she will use this very strange Giggly Nichole effect whenever she's trying to detract away from the seriousness of a question. She also then says, a bit perplexingly, that prior to Father's Day, Chris told her that he was divorcing Shanann. But didn't Nichole just say that he didn't say that he was married and said that happened around Father? Oh, that's okay. That's obvious lie number one. During this time, obviously, they're still trying to lay the groundwork of how Nichol and Chris actually conversed. And at this point, there is a really lengthy conversation about Chris having two phones, one being a work phone and the other being his personal business phone. She alludes to something about being uncomfortable with carrying on this sort of hanging out casual friendship. She describes that she's not comfortable with that occurring on the business phone. And so she turns it over to the private personal phone. The private personal phone that she cannot recall what it is, and she deleted everything prior to coming to the police station.
Bruh.
Now we're going with a jump forward in time to roughly the beginning of July, which is when she said that was the first time that her and Chris met outside of work. So the very first meeting of them meeting outside of work was the beginning of July. Let's earmark that, early July. Ding! That's going in the timeline. Early July, it all kicked off. She then says that in this park that they met up on their first date outside of, well, she doesn't use the word date, but the first time they hung out. And you're going to notice a really interesting pattern about the terminology she uses of hanging out. And when exactly she says that she's hanging out with Chris. This is also the very first time in the interview where she is going to describe 6 weeks as so long ago. And she will consistently come back to this point that for some reason 6 weeks is a really long time ago. Like we're talking unfathomably long ago. Almost like Jesus Christ crucifixion long to this woman.
I just feel like some of this happened so long ago that I can't tell you like the exact words of the exact conversation at the exact time and place, because it's like we had a lot of conversations.
Now, in this time, obviously, she was getting to know him better. They were hanging out, and was the detective at the time asks what he was like, what Chris was like, and she described him as an introvert, as in he didn't want to talk to people. He only wanted to talk to people that he wanted to talk to. So we commonly refer to those people as utter twats. But no, it's introvert. That's the word for it now. We can confirm that the neighbour also thought that Chris was a massive twat. I mean an introvert, because he said that he didn't speak to him all that often either. During this time, she says that they never argued, that they had a few disagreements, but Chris he just wasn't the shouty type. He didn't get angry. He was chill. He's a cool guy, Chris. So cool. He just chill all the time and never aggressive and never spoke a bad word about Shanann. Now, we're still not getting specifics of dates and times from her. This is still in the magical, vague realm of early July. And you'll notice that this is also a theme that comes up. Trying to get Nichol to actually name a specific date is a bit like trying to get Trump's hair to not look like a guinea pig. This is also the point of the interview where she first mentions actually going to the Watts family home, and says that she's literally only gone twice. She's only ever gone twice. Now, the timeline of her going to the house is also a little bit varied, but the two specific dates she gives, selective memory Nichol also picks in and out that 6 weeks is so long ago that she can't think about specifics, and yet she can pick out the 4th of July and the weekend of the 14th of July. Going into the house the very first time, which she said happened on the 4th of July. Now, 4th of July is a big family holiday in the US. It just seems very strange that he wouldn't have been with his family, don't you think? Going into the house on this date, she says that it wasn't an extended stay. Now, what's an extended stay? Are we talking until dinner? Are we talking until someone pulls out the dildos? What are we talking about here? No, it wasn't for any particular reason to do with them hanging out. It was because she felt that it was someone else's existence and that it was their space. And it's another example of her not saying Shanann's name. A particular choice quote is,
And so for me, out of respect just for whatever situation he had going on and the fact that it's not my home, I felt that it was better to be in my place.
respect for Chris. What about his wife and children? When asked whether or not she would meet his children, she definitively says in her first sentence that she wouldn't. She absolutely wouldn't. It's just not something she would do, which then amends to, well, maybe in a year if we were still together, I'd meet his children, you know, if he'd sorted the divorce out and etc., etc. Now, here come the big talks between Nichol and Chris, where they start to talk more seriously about the nature of his supposed divorce and separation, which Nichol says that she is absolutely convinced was definitely happening. I am pressing X to doubt. Pressing X to doubt. Now, on that date, on the 4th of July, she says that she went there early in the morning, and then she stayed long enough for lunch after hanging out, and they ate chicken and carrots. Selective memory. And this is the beginning of the negotiations over the phone from the cop to Nichol, saying, Nichol, we'd just like to see your phone. You know, all this stuff you're telling us could just be backed up by all the text messages. And she's like, mate, no.
Gotcha, bitch.
We then skip back over to the 14th of July. She said that they stopped quick at the house, and that on this particular occasion she managed to catch a photo on the wall of Shanann and one of their children. It was either Celeste or Bella. And Nichol's, well, what she says her first reaction was, oh, she's so beautiful.
Like, wow, she's so beautiful.
Chris has everything you could want from life. He's got a beautiful wife, and he's got beautiful kids, and he's got his beautiful hairs. Why is he working on his marriage?
Are you sure about that?
But also, while thinking about this, she describes it as a contractual agreement. Never describes Chris as a married man. Never even makes reference to the fact that he is married to Shanann. Those words together never happen. And then we have good old encouraging Nichol coming up. Cheerleader Nichol. No, Chris! Chris, you need to work on your marriage. You can't ruin your marriage. Look at the health. The negotiation of the phone occurs yet again of, please, Nichol, can we have your phone? Everything you're saying here can be verified by your phone if you just let us look at these things. We're not going to look at anything else. We're just going to look at any correspondence that you and Chris had. We'll even write it down exactly what we'll look for, because then we legally can't go outside of that. Her response is, I don't want somebody to see those texts. No, she does specify that it's the raunchy texts. The police officer obviously says that, you know, we're all adults here. I mean, she's sitting right next door to her dad. I don't know if that was made obvious. But yeah, her dad, who is a lawyer, is sitting right next to her the entire time during this interview. So she's trying to make it out as if she's concerned, you know, it's a bit raunchy. I don't want any of you hardened policemen who have seen people be shot to see a couple of sects between me and Chris. Oh, I wouldn't want that. And then she reveals her actual true meaning behind this, which is that she doesn't want the newspapers to get a hold of it.
I don't want the newspapers to get that. That's all I want.
The only ones that we would be looking for, again, is the same.
I just want to emphasize, put yourself in this position. Let's say you're in a relationship with, or you were in a relationship with a married man. You're a mistress. You are aware of this, and he hasn't killed anybody, but maybe he's done something bad. I don't know. He's kidnapped them or defrauded them. They're not dead, and you were having a relationship with him, and you've got a whole bunch of text messages about him having an affair that they didn't know about, and that could play an important role into the kidnapping or whatever. Would you be negotiating over whether or not to hand your phone over for a full 6 minutes? Because that's how long it takes. A full 6 minutes for her to have them write down exactly what they want. And even then, the silence is deafening. Now, this portion of the interview really does go backwards and forwards. This is almost like a preliminary conclusion, preliminary memories about what happened on the Sunday and the Monday and the Tuesday. So this is all very informally put together. There is no sense of trying to establish a timeline. She just kind of chimes in with some information here and there, but it will become very relevant by the end. She says that on Tuesday the 14th of August, which is obviously the day after that that Shanann and the children were murdered. She said that she read some news about it and then spoke with him on the phone. and said apparently on the 14th that she found out that Shanann was pregnant. She says she found this out from the news. She didn't hear it from Chris. She didn't hear it from any other sources. She heard it from the news. Now, this is where indignant Nichol comes in and says, "He lied to me. He lied to me about Shanann being pregnant. Oh, wait, I can't use her name because I'm the mistress and I'm a horrible person. Oh, God. Oh. What if she's in danger?" It occurred to her that Shanann might be in danger. So does she call the cops on the Tuesday? Nope. Takes until Wednesday. Gives it a nice, just thinks about it for a bit. Formulates her theories because, now we're Detective Nichol. Now, this is the excuse that she gives as to why she deleted everything. And now, when it comes to deleting everything, we don't just mean deleting everything, because most things can be restored even from a deleted state. No, we're talking forensic scrubbing level of deletion. We're talking Hillary Clinton's emails level of scrubbing here.
I deleted all of his stuff because he lied to me. I mean, that's what it was. It was the hurt that made me delete it. And then it was the lie that made me start questioning everything else he'd been telling me for the last few days.
She decided to delete everything because she was upset that he lied to her about Shanann being pregnant. Not because his wife was missing or all of his family. No. She was just really upset because he lied to her. Now, obviously, she smart Nichol has come into the room now. Clever Nichol is upset that, he said that he was in a state of divorcing, and even though Shanann was 15 weeks pregnant. So, obviously they weren't in the middle of a separation because, 15 weeks pregnant. Despite all that, she said that she would have dumped him despite the murders because, the lie was just so awful. Carrying on with a married man with 2 children is completely fine, but, lying about pregnancy, it's awful. Completely awful. Frustratingly, back to the texts. Yes, it's text negotiation number 3. We've got to go back into exactly what they're going to be looking at. So she emphasises that absolutely everything was in texts. Says she has no social media, which is also another one of those provable lies. Because in order to look at another Facebook page, you have to have a Facebook page, and we know for a fact that she searched for Shanann's Facebook page the year previously. So that's just one of those silly, petty lies. What's the point? What's the point in lying about that? Now, interestingly, when she was asked if she could help them, so when they get the transcript of all these messages, obviously it's going to be thousands. She said that she was chatting with him constantly. They were sort of umbilically attached to an iPhone to each other, like Siamese twins with an iPhone in the middle. That's what they were kind of like. And so there's going to be thousands. It's going to take forever. That's going to take forever to go through all of those. So they say, hey, is there any particular day, anything that was said in particular, search terms and things that you can think of that would possibly help us to pinpoint any information that we might need to get to? And what was her response?
I'm still in shock that this whole thing happened. That's why I gave him the benefit of the doubt for the first day, because I was just like, no way. I didn't even think about that. I mean, murder was not on the top of my mind when somebody doesn't come home for an evening.
I'm still in shock about the case. She just fully ignored the question, completely deflected the question because she didn't want to answer it, because she didn't want to give any specific information, because the entire way through she's been claiming that she can't remember. It's amnesia. It's that... It's Nichol's amnesiac brain. She says a week prior to all of this, however, that she was looking for apartments for Chris and for the kids, that they were going to get a place together, but she's very, very emphatic to say that, oh, no, not me, not for me. I'm not going to move there, I promise. I absolutely promise. He asked me to go. He kept saying that he wanted me to go to them and everything. It's not like I looked all of those apartments up and I was the one who told him that this one was the perfect place and that he could just move in there, and he totally asked me to come and see it with me. I definitely didn't want him to murder his wife and children. At this point in the interview, that she does in fact signed it. You can just hear it, the world's loudest signature going on in the background. Now, obviously, the one peculiar thing that I think the detectives at this point in the interview have sort of realised about Nichol, she's not said Shanann's name once.
He said
Do you know her name at this point?
Yeah.
Okay. Are you okay saying her name?
It's Shanann.
All right.
In the most depressed voice ever. And it's the most uncomfortable sounding she sounds in this entire interview. She then, for the first time in the entire interview, names the children as well, Bella and Celeste. And then puts on that cutesy voice again and goes, "Oh, Cece." Not as if, this was a little girl that had been shoved into an oil tank. Despite all of her, I was trying to help, I was trying to get him to work on his marriage, I wanted him to fix everything. Despite that whole spiel, she reveals absolutely everything when she drops this bombshell.
I thought I had, convinced him to, try to make peace with her. And I was like, if you guys work on this, I'm out. Because what's the point? I'm not trying to be with somebody that's in another relationship, which...
Bitch, you're the other woman.
Bruh.
That's like eating a hot dog, saying I'm not going to sit with you because you're also eating a hot dog. Now, the next, I would say, 20 minutes-ish of the interview are just run-overs of what was previously covered. So I'm actually going to skip ahead. There are some bits in there which are really interesting, and if you listen out for them, you'll pick up on it. But one of the choice things is, just specific memories that she seems to magically have. The selective memory count goes up as she keeps going through things that she says she can't remember, and then she can. Things Nichol says that she can remember specifically. Says that Chris said that Shanann was 50-50 everything when they were going to share custody of the children. Talked to Chris about how cute it would be that when she does eventually meet his two little girls, that she's going to teach them how to paint pottery and plant plants, and how cute that was going to be. That she asked him specifically about custody. The entire conversation about his requirements for a new house. The specific budget that Chris had for a new apartment, and it was $1,100 to $1,400. And as if putting the boot on Shanann wasn't enough for Nichol throughout this interview, she has to introduce a new angle, which was the financial troubles that the Watts were going through. When the detective asks her, how exactly did you know that they were having money troubles? Her response is that everything in the house looked very expensive. It was a big house, there was lots of nice things in it, and they had that big old Lexus in front of the house, which she estimated to be around $80,000. She described them as living above their means, and then starts to go in a very strange tirade against Shanann, which is odd considering the circumstances that she's currently in.
like I said, the only financial thing he ever said is just she just likes to spend money, a lot of it. So that was just kind of the vibe that I got from that, and that it was a lifestyle that she liked to live, very materialistic kind of lifestyle.
A materialistic lifestyle. Nichol, you do know that you're being interviewed about the man you were having an affair with and the fact that he murdered his wife?
Gotcha, bitch.
Just because you didn't want to flash your cash doesn't mean other people don't. Now, Shanann did touch on this before about how it would have affected her judgment and how she would have gone forward with the relationship with Chris had she known that Shanann was in fact pregnant. And she reiterates and comes back to that point and says that she absolutely, fundamentally did not know that Shanann was pregnant. Now, quite rightly, the detective picks up on this and says, well, hypothetically, let's say that Chris didn't kill his family and he just killed Shanann because she was pregnant. Just killed Shanann, the two little girls went dead. Would you have carried on with him then? Her dad, the lawyer, jumps in very quickly with don't lead.
If, let's say this week you guys were to go look at some apartments, and this is hypothetical, but you've never found out that his wife was pregnant, would that have changed anything? Like you just said, if I knew his wife was pregnant, I wouldn't be in this picture. So if his wife was not pregnant, and forgive me, but if if he takes her out of the picture, you're never going to know that she was pregnant, right?
What do you mean takes her out of the picture? Like,
if he murdered her, she's out of the picture. You're never going to know if she was pregnant. If he can get away with murder, you're not going to... I got divorced from my wife. Do you understand what I'm saying here? If she's gone...
But this...
Don't lead.
The detective quite rightly defends himself and says, well, it's a hypothetical question. It's, nobody's here under the legal threats. You can leave whatever you want. It's just a hypothetical. They go back and forth a little bit, her and the father trying to get him to drop the line of questioning. But he perseveres with it.
Continued the relationship, right?
But he killed his kids. At what point does he think that I'm going to be in a relationship?
I'm not talking about the children. I'm just talking specifically about her. If you only knew, if the kids were still here, and he called you and said, "I'm divorced from my wife," and he gets away with this, do you understand what I'm thinking from his aspect?
I still wouldn't do it. I still wouldn't do it because I'd be like, where did she go?
She deflects by saying, I still wouldn't stay with him. And her reasoning is because Shanann's a good mum, and she would wonder where she had gone. Now, this is the first time that she's even vaguely thought about Shanann. And why now? Why now of all times would it affect the outcome of her relationship with Chris, considering this is what she was aiming for the entire time? Now we start leading up to the real meat of the substance of this interview, of the few days leading up to the murders. She says she only saw him a few times. She says that she saw him on the Wednesday, then again on the Saturday. Now the Saturday was when they went to the bar called the Lazy Dog, where they went to go and watch a Broncos game. She's then asked if she remembers roughly what time that was. Her knee-jerk reaction is to say no, kind of. Finally ties herself down to a time, because realistically you can't pretend to not know something that happened 5 days ago, and she ties it down to it was around 5 o'clock. They then go on to the first bar. She didn't like the menu there, so they decided to move on and go to a different bar. They then start eating around 6:30, then they eat dinner. Apparently they didn't stay for dessert, and then they went back to her house again to hang out. She quite belligerently says, when she's asked what time he left about, was, I don't know, you can work it out from my texts. Words of an innocent person, I tell you. All of the times that we've pointed out when Nicole's selective memory comes in, here is a really lovely example of this when she's asked about, what sort of conversations did they have over dinner on Saturday, which was, I will remind you again, 5 days previous to this interview. She says she just doesn't know, not a clue.
Saturday, during your dinner, what kind of conversation did you guys have?
I don't even remember. Oh, And
then the weird dieting conversation starts. So prior to this, there's a long conversation about things like roughly when he left, and she doesn't remember. Now she does. Now we go into a 5-minute spiel about macronutrients. She says the word macro more times than she says the name Shanann throughout the entire interview. She's got more to say about food ratios, diet talk, losing weight, his macros, weight loss, his calorie intake and his weight goals than she has about the family that her boyfriend slaughtered. Despite all this, she's once again able to muster up the specific topics that were talked about. So Chris had spoken to her about the nut incident at Cindy's house, which is his mother's house, where she fed him the nutty chocolate ice cream. She also knew who was part of Chris's family, that he had a mother and a father and a sister. So, a lot of conversations that she just, remembered again. And despite not remembering exactly how long he was out there, she definitely remembers that on the final day he went and saw his family, but still has no idea when he came back. We move on to the phone call on Sunday, which happened between 9 and 11. She's asked to describe her relationship with Chris. Now, I don't know how many of you out there, if you were ever asked how would you describe your relationship, you'd probably say something like, he's lovely, I love him, he's a nice person, we have fun, I love him, He's got a nice penis. Nicole's choice of words are, instead, fairly healthy, respectful, open communications, honest, and calm. It sounds like she's in a job interview and she's writing her CV for it. So despite all this and you know, lacking the words passion, excitement, sparks, you know, all the words you would associate a mistress having with their married man boyfriend, none of those words. She then goes on to say that they told each other that they loved each other and that she said it multiple times and she meant it every time. But Chris said it more than her, so somehow it all balances out.
I think it was something where it was like I said it a few times and I meant it, but he definitely felt the urge to say it to me a lot more than I did to him because it was just all very new to me, and it was like, take your time with this. Like, you don't need to like rush that.
Are you sure about that?
And while all this was going on, apparently Chris at that point said that he loved her again, at which point she became quite belligerent.
Don't say that to me. Like, please go try to fit. And I mean, and that might even be in the text too, where it's like, don't say those words to me and then go try to make peace with your wife and lay in bed with another woman.
The irony is hurting Nicole's 2 brain cells, and one of them just popped. She now goes on to another provable lie, which is when she was asked, did she tell any friends about him? She says, nope, very quick with that. And we know that is absolutely untrue via the text messages she asked her friend to delete about Chris after the police interview. The real true colours of why she's so concerned come out, though. She says, my name is about to be slandered and I'm about to be hated by everybody. Well, yeah, no shit. She pleads with them and says, this hurts me.
My name is about to be, like, slandered for probably a while. I don't know how long it's going to take to heal, but I would not be surprised if it's going to be hard to go out in public sometimes for a couple of years. And that really hurts me.
I mean, at that point, I don't really know what to say. This hurts me. Oh God, my feelings have been so hurt by the fact that people are upset with the fact that I was carrying on with a married man that off his entire family. Cue very dramatic crying, with wails in between and tears and the over the top display of emotion. Take all that into account, and if by her cries you'd think that she'd lost children, but no, it's all a big performance, and it's quite gross to listen to, if I'm honest. Now we instantaneously go back to that phone call at 9/11. I did say that this would be jumping about a bit, but when pushed to ask what exactly was said in that conversation, she just says she doesn't remember. I don't know, her brain. How big's that memory that she can't remember? How big is the incapability of being able to remember a conversation you had 3 days ago? Then when pushed to it, she says, "Oh, random stuff." It's hard to pinpoint, really. It's not, the night that he murdered his family. And then tellingly says probably nothing of relevance. Well, if you can't remember, how do you know? If you can't remember, how do you know it wasn't relevant? If you can't remember, do you remember that it was not relevant? In which case you probably remember what it was, and you should just bloody say it. Now, this is the point that it is kind of interesting, and it sort of shines a light on the sort of strange backwards logic that Nichol presents with things that were said and the reasoning behind what she thought. So she mentions that she can hear a TV in the background when she's talking to Chris that night. And she says, well, I just thought it was strange because there isn't a TV down in the basement, which is a very strange detail to get hung up on if you think about it, because what does it matter if he's in the basement? She gives for me personally, if I heard the TV in the background and I thought it was strange, I'd probably think it was strange because I'd think, oh, it's so late that he's going to wake his children up. But that's not her concern. Her concern is that he's just not in the basement. Nothing to do with the girls, nothing to do with that. And she just thought to herself that it's late, why are you watching TV? So she's got that link in her head, TV and lateness. And it's almost like she's trying to justify the fact that it was very late and it was unusual. It wasn't normal for Chris to be watching TV late at night. Because she says the usual thing that they do is they talk really, really late until they pass out. And this was a particular occasion where he was up very late and watching the TV, and presumably he put the phone down before this usual passing out actually occurred. It was at this point in the conversation that he mentions as a sort of aside to Nichol that he's going straight to the field tomorrow. And she definitively points out that it is at the point in Sunday evening during that conversation when he says to her, "Oh, I'm going to go to the field." He very specifically mentions that he won't see her again in the office in the morning. So, obviously with hindsight, we know why that is. But it's interesting how he's mentioning this, and it's interesting how this stands out in her mind. The detective then comes in and says, well, what did Chris do during the day? And considering she has admitted all throughout this interview that they are almost surgically attached to each other via an iPhone, that she should be able to tell them exactly what he did. Instead, she says, I just don't remember. Not selective memory.
You know what he did Sunday during the day?
I don't even know what I did on Sunday during the day. I am so tired. Let me just think about this. Daniel came over Friday. I hung out with him Saturday. And then Sunday...
The biggest pause then follows. And then she follows it with, I don't even know what I did on Sunday. So not only has the brain cells popped for Chris's day, it's also popped for her own. Then she's got it. Birthday party. He went to a child's birthday party because one of his children was invited to the birthday party. And then she remembers specifically they had a water balloon fight. She still can't remember what she did, but she definitely remembers now that it was birthday party, water balloon fight. Not a clue what she was doing though. Dad then helpfully pops in and says, "Oh yeah, we went to the museum, do you remember? Yeah. We went as a family, do you remember?" And she's like, "Yeah. Yeah, we totally did, didn't we? Yeah, the museum, we all went there. Great, yeah, brunch, lovely."
With the kids,
But I went to the museum on what day? Saturday or Sunday?
Sunday.
Okay.
That's right. So that's what I was like, was I hanging out with you? God.
Very memorable event, huh?
Me and him and my stepmother and my sister went to the museum.
Then when asked what she did in the evening, she was once again straight back to amnesia. I don't know, I was at home, I was cleaning, I don't know. This is important to pin into the timeline. She says the last time she spoke to him was on that Monday evening, and then on the Sunday evening, and then the next time that she spoke to him was Monday morning. Now she flip-flops of what happens on Monday. Do you remember the amount of times that she said before where she has said, "We were constantly talking, we're constantly texting, we're phoning each other all the time. We are joined at the ear by Chinese sweatshop phones." Out of nowhere now, she says that she didn't really speak to him that day. On the Monday. Sporadic. Just didn't really talk to him that much.
Like at this point, I remember really key things, but if it's like a conversation that I'm like, I don't remember exactly what was discussed, it's because it was probably just bullshit. Just talking to each other. Yeah.
Small talk stuff.
Yeah. But I remember he was busy that day, and we didn't talk that much.
Apparently the next time that he actually spoke to her was 3:45, and said that he'd had a busy day. She then elaborates, and instead of that busy day, it's that the police have been called and they're searching his house. Slowly, these new details all seem to be coming out of her testimony. Falling out like giant boobs out of a poorly attached bra. She also said that it wasn't unusual. It wasn't unusual that he wasn't texting as much, even though they constantly talked on the phone. Now, this time around, completely fine. This portion of the interview is interesting and kind of shows that the interviewer either didn't know what he was doing or wasn't taking this quite seriously as maybe he should have been taking it. Because the rest of the interview is pretty much Nichol sort of theorizing as to, details to do with Shanann. Why was Shanann's cell left? Why was her purse left? You know, where might have she have taken the kids? Who was the friend? Oh, she didn't know the friend that Chris mentioned. And none of it was establishing an alibi for her, which was surely the intention of this interview. But no, unfortunately, the detective kind of shows that he wasn't really that prepared for this interview, which is a shame, really. The end of the interview for me kind of perfectly sums this up. And there's a little quote of hers trying to explain basically what she was doing and how she thinks about this entire process. Her methods of reacting to simple questions. It's kind of summarized with this one.
Anyways, I didn't know, like, who she was. And so, I started asking him. I was like, well, where do you think your wife is at? And he's like, I think she'll be back tonight. Like, I think she's, like, out with somebody. And he was telling me that they had a disagreement. So I was like, well, I remember telling him, I was like, you should make sure that you have wait a minute.
Speech doesn't sound like this when it's coming naturally, when it's coming from an honest place in the brain. Anybody that's listening to this speech and analysing it can hear the deceit in it. I suppose now that we've got to the end of the video, I think it's hard to be able to make a distinction on Nichol just because she is a mistress. She is aware she's a mistress. Mistresses don't like the wives of their boyfriend husbands. They don't like them. I mean, you only have to watch any Murder, She Wrote to know that. So I'm not expecting Nichol to talk about Shanann in any particular nice, positive ways, because a mistress just simply doesn't feel that way about a wife. But come on, Matt, there are so many lies. Honestly, she's like Richard Nixon level of lie in this interview. And I'm just so shocked that more hasn't been done to investigate. Do I think that she was a co-conspirator? I couldn't say either way. There's not enough evidence to suggest that she was a co-conspirator. I mean, if you think she's a co-conspirator, then put your theories in the comments below and let me know what you think, because I think there's an argument to be made that she could be, but unfortunately the evidence just isn't there. And most of the evidence that could prove whether or not she was innocent of being a co-conspirator or guilty of being a co-conspirator are going to be in those text messages. There's only one issue with that. She forensically scrubbed her phone. Do innocent people forensically scrub their phone? Because how do you explain that Chris Watts, when his phone was recovered, he had 8,192 text messages on it, and when Nichol gave her phone over, she had 3. Yeah, 3. That's more text messages than she mentioned Shanann's name in a 2-hour interview. So let me know what you think about Nichol. I think that this entire interview is really interesting. And if you can stomach to listen to 2 hours of this...
Like a unique door.
Not the
they
door
have a
itself.
camera on their door.
Okay,
I know
there's a
that.
camera on the... Which door?
It's on the front door, isn't it?
I don't know. I'm asking
I think so.
Okay.
I don't know.
Then try and push through it. Get a glass of wine. Do some heroin or something. And if this interview didn't make her look guilty enough, or at least guilty enough to have some knowledge that maybe she shouldn't have had, she was found to have searched on Google for Amber Frey. Now, if you don't know who Amber Frey is, she was the mistress of Scott Peterson, who was found guilty of murdering his pregnant wife. She looked up Amber Frey's book deal.
Bruh.
Yes, because the most logical thing you do after giving a statement to the police about how your boyfriend's murdered his family is to see what book you could write about it. It's not the classiest thing you could have done, Nichol, if I'm honest. But let me know what you think. Let me know down in the comments and we can have a little debate and a theorising about what exactly happened with Nichol Kessinger and whether or not she actually really genuinely knew. Why did she scrub her phone? Why did she keep saying that she wasn't interested and then carried on and then freaked out? Why couldn't she remember anything? Why has she got selective amnesia? I know that it's been a long while since I've done any of these videos. It's just been a pretty stressful time. Obviously with coronavirus, we've all got a little bit more time. I'm working from home at the moment. But yeah, if you like my content, obviously I need people to give me feedback on it and stuff. I'm new to this. I've got new microphones, so it doesn't sound awful anymore since I ripped the end into my computer like an idiot. So if you do want to see anything specific or you have any ideas, let me know. Give me your feedback, and if you do like it, give me a like and subscribe, and that would really help me out. Stay safe, you fellow sickos out there, and remember to wash your hands.